Most Connecticut schools are scheduled to open at the end of August, and public health officials and school administrators are all trying to figure out the safest way for students to get back into the classroom. However, among the thousands of safety details to be considered for all the different types of school buildings in Connecticut, one problem that may be really difficult to overcome is ventilation. I spoke to Paulo Verardi, an associate professor of virology and vaccinology at the University of Connecticut, and he says, based on the evidence, that COVID 19 should actually be considered an airborne virus. Airborne is a designation that the World Health Organization has not yet given to COVID, but if it is an airborne virus, then that could require more effort to ensure safe airflow in the classrooms. What makes something an airborne virus, and why isn't COVID 19 officially labeled as one?
Yeah, so the elephant in the room regarding COVID-19 is airborne transmission. You really have two ways of transmission when you're talking about respiratory diseases. One is by contact, actually, which is what we are focusing on right now. So this is because you have essentially big droplets, and these droplets come out of you when you are coughing, when you are sneezing, when you're talking, in fact, and and for those type of things, distance is really relevant. Hand washing, and obviously the use of masks or any type of facial covering. And that's because together all of these things will help you to contain this, again, big droplets. They tend to be dispersed, and eventually they don't stay in the air. They come down. Now if the particles are small enough, and this is like really tiny, like 5 micrometers or so in size, then they are technically called an aerosol. So these are really tiny particles, tiny droplets, so to speak. Those may or can remain in air. They will not drop like the larger particles. So the simple fact that you are breathing, you're generating these aerosols, is really, it behaves like a plume, or it forms a cloud around you, essentially, right? And for those, obviously, if a person comes in close proximity to your cloud, so to speak, you'll be exposed to those aerosol particles. They may contain infectious virus in it, and those will be, easily come in through the breathing and have the potential to infect you. So about 200 scientists or so published earlier this month an article really alerting to the fact that COVID-19 or SARS coronavirus 2 should really be regarded as having at least the potential for airborne transmission.
Right now, the recommendations for schools in Connecticut are don't use fans, have the windows open. I guess I'm under the assumption that it's don't use fans to blow these particles all around. But do you think this is an effective way to approach the ventilation and airflow issue in small rooms and classrooms?
Exactly. So stagnant air is going to be a bad idea. And you would think that, by using fans, you would, disperse these clouds or plumes, right? And dilute them out. And that's one way of doing it. However, it kind of bypasses the whole, distance strategy that we are using, right? So it's probably not the best strategy. But there are some little things that you can do, perhaps, to, refresh the air in the correct way. And one will be, just for example, placing a fan in a particular window or door, bringing fresh air in. The fresh air ideally will be coming from the outside, so it will be, a window will be better. But then you would have to also ideally put, a fan blowing air out of the room, ideally in the opposite end, so that you would have, that flow of air coming through the room, entering, fresh air entering one side, and old or used air, leaving on the other side. So that would renew that air. It would replace with fresh air, and it's relatively a low-tech type of solution to this. Obviously, it depends on weather a lot. So, if it's raining, having a fan in the window may not be a good idea. If it's too cold outside, having the windows open, will be problematic. But it's important not just to mix air. Important is to bring fresh air in and try to get it out.
Is there anything that you want to just talk about that was not covered, just something to add?
But for COVID-19, I think that there is enough evidence. So for me, it's very convincing. Personally, to me, as a virologist, it is very convincing that airborne transmission is occurring. You just have to look at some of the outbreaks that we had, in particular exposures that people had, and that is easily explained by airborne transmission, not just by contact or large droplet type of transmission. So we just have to remember that it's not just hand washing, not just wearing the face covering and keeping the distance. Is also taking our air into account, right, and avoid stagnation when in public places.
Reporting for CT News Junkie, I'm Adam Chiara.